You. Good to be with you guys again. If you have a Bible on your phone, you can turn to Psalm 16 with me. Um, the psalm begins by saying this: Keep me safe, my God, for in you I take refuge. I said to the Lord, you are my Lord. Apart from you, I have no good thing. I say of the holy people who are in the land, they are the noble ones, in whom is all my delight. Those who run after other gods will suffer more and more. This psalm is written from the perspective of a priest in the nation of Israel. And we don't know exactly what's going on in the psalmist's life, but what we do know is that he has found himself in some sort of danger, some sort of distress, some sort of uh, discomfort or plight. And we know this because he starts by saying, keep me safe, my God, for in you I take refuge. In a lot of ways, the best test of what you believe at any given moment is not what you say or not what your religion is listed as on your social media, but it is the places and the people that you run to when your safety is challenged. It's the places that you run for comfort when things don't go as you were hoping that they would. So the psalmist finds himself in a crisis and he turns to the Lord. He says, in you do I take refuge. But he knows that that's not the whole story. That's not the only place that people go when things don't go as they want it to. He describes in those opening verses those who run after other gods. He says, those who run after other gods will suffer more and more. I have trusted in you in the midst of this crisis, and those who do something different and choose a different God will not experience joy or freedom. A lot of times when you read the Bible and you hear about Israel worshiping other gods, you tend to think that they have stopped believing in one God and started believing in another. So we don't worship Yahweh anymore. We worship Baal or Moloch or Asherah. You can list all the different gods that are in play in the Old Testament, but that's not actually normally how people thought in the time when the Bible was written. Being an atheist was just not a thing. And disbelieving in one God and believing in another God was also not a thing. What normally happened was a practice that is sometimes called henotheism. That's not going to be on the test. You don't have to memorize that. But what would happen is people would say, well, there's one God who's the most important. It's Yahweh. But there are these other gods who are also important. The people of Israel, when they worship other gods, almost never stopped believing in the Lord. They just started believing in other gods in addition to him. And so they would continue to worship Yahweh, but they would also go to the god of rain when the crops failed, or the god of war when they were entering into battle, or the god of fertility when they were struggling to conceive. And so they would add all of these other sources of comfort in addition to the Lord. And that's actually pretty close to the temptation that most of us face in a crisis. It's not that when things go bad, we become atheists and just say God doesn't exist. But instead, we see him as one source of comfort among many, as one source of salvation among many. And so we look to the therapist to save us from anxiety. We go to the doctor to save us from sickness. We look to a relationship to save us from loneliness. We look at the next purchase to give us a sense of direction and purpose when life feels aimless. And none of these things are bad. All of these things are good. I went to the doctor this week. It's not, so don't hear me say that it's not a good thing. But they become a dangerous thing when we see them as a source of healing apart from the Lord. They become a dangerous thing if you let them become gods rather than tools in the hands of the one true God. Because then they become idols, and idols always make demands. Idols are always hungry for more. Each of these things at their best is a way that God restores us, but we have to see them not as gods, but as tools in the hands of the one true God. The psalmist goes on and says, I will not pour out libations of blood to such gods, or take up their names on my lips. We don't know exactly how some of these other gods in Israel were worshipped, but what we do know is that many of them required bloody sacrifices, not just of animals, but of people. Elsewhere, the Psalms will describe these gods as demanding the shedding of innocent blood or the sacrifice of sons and daughters. One of the hallmarks of idolatry in the Old Testament is that it makes people callous to the suffering of other people. And so this is actually a really good test of whether you've made something an idol in your life, whether it's a relationship or a job, or even like a form of entertainment. Is it demanding that you overlook the weakest people in your life? Is it demanding that you ignore your kids? Is it demanding that you ignore your spouse? Is it demanding that you ignore the people near you who are suffering so that you can get what you want from this thing? If that's the case, then it's probably become an idol. It's the job that meets your every financial need but takes you away from your family. It's the cycle of drinking that numbs your pain but makes you absent to your kids. I could go on and on. The point is, when something makes those kind of demands in exchange for your comfort or your security, it's an idol. It's not God. And the psalmist recognizes that to put his trust in the Lord is actually to turn from these things, to turn away from these idols and the comfort of these false gods. I mentioned that this psalm is written from the perspective of a priest. And we get this a little bit later. The psalmist says, Lord, you alone are my portion and my cup. You make my lot secure. The boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Surely I have a delightful inheritance. I will praise the Lord who counsels me. Even at night, my heart instructs me. I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I will not be shaken. When Israel first gets out of Egypt and they enter into the promised land, God divides the land up through Moses and says, this tribe is going to get this corner, this tribe is going to get this corner, this tribe is going to get this corner. And so everybody's getting a piece of property. In my mind, it's like the scene from Oprah where she's giving away cars, but God's like, you get some land and you get some land and you get some land. And then it gets to the tribe of Levi, which are the priests in Israel. And Aaron, God says to Aaron, who is the head of the tribe of priests, you will have no inheritance in the land, nor will you have any portion among them. I am your portion and your inheritance among the Israelites. So everybody gets land except for you. You get me. That's your inheritance. When my parents were getting ready for Christmas growing up, they went all out. And we didn't have a lot of money, which meant that going all out wasn't that we got a lot of really expensive things. But for my parents, it was important that there were a lot of things under the tree when we would wake up as kids. And so what they would do is any gift they got us, they would sort of break up into smaller pieces and wrap the pieces individually. So if one of us got a camera for Christmas, the camera would get wrapped, the roll of film would get wrapped separately, each battery would get wrapped separately, the case for the camera would get wrapped separately. So you got 2 batteries, roll of film, camera, case. That's 5 presents under the tree, but it's all basically just a single working camera. And that was awesome. Like as a kid, I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I had so much fun opening up a battery and trying to figure out what it went to. And it was this rabbit trail. But what would happen sometimes is that they would get confused because they were wrapping so many individual things. And every once in a while, a present would get mislabeled. And so there was this one year when I was a kid where I really wanted a portable TV. I have no idea why. I just thought it would be cool to like sit in the car and watch TV. And this was essentially useless because this is when TVs have the rabbit ear antennas. And if a car is always moving, you can't actually watch anything. But I had asked for it over and over and over again. And Christmas morning rolls around and we're opening presents. And my brother opens a present that's got his name on it. And it's a portable TV. And he had never asked for it, never expressed any interest in it. I'm fully convinced my parents just got confused the night before wrapping it and wrote the wrong name on the TV. And I remember that whole morning just being like, what the heck? Like, this is the thing I wanted. And he got it. So I was sort of bargaining with my brother. I'm like, I'll share my stuff with you if you let me use that TV. And he didn't care. He was like 4 years old and had no interest in it whatsoever. But you could almost imagine for the Levi's, they're watching everybody else get land and an inheritance. And then it comes to them, and God says, you get nothing, you get me. And there is this sort of Christmas morning disappointment of watching somebody else get the thing that you wanted. But this psalm is written from the perspective of one of those priests. And this is what he says: Lord, you alone are my portion and my cup. You make my lot secure. The boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Surely I have a delightful inheritance. I think that this is the question we need to ask ourselves. If you are given the choice between greater comfort, an easier life, a nicer house, a better salary, or you are offered a deeper relationship with the Lord, what would you choose? Do we have the kind of vision of God that says, if I have God, I have what I need? Because that's what's offered to us in the gospel. It's not to say that other things won't come. Like, if you want, after I'm done talking, like, I'm happy to share stories with you of like miraculous healing in my family. I believe that God heals, miraculous provision, where God has provided financially in ways that were just above and beyond what we expected. It's not that those things don't happen. It's just that that's not what's promised in the gospel. What's promised is not that you will get everything that you want, but that you will get God. In the New Testament, Peter describes the church as a kingdom of priests. And he says, you are a royal priesthood, a chosen nation. What do the priests get in the Old Testament? They get God himself. They may not get the land that everybody else gets, but they get something better, which is the Lord and his presence. And that's what the psalmist says, that the lines have fallen in pleasant places. Because he has the Lord, he has enough. And my prayer for you is that you would begin to find yourself adopting that perspective, that the Lord would give you the grace to receive him as enough in whatever trial you're going through, and that would be your refuge and your strength. So let me pray for you guys and for the day ahead, and we will be done for the morning. Father, just grateful for Dallas One, grateful for the chance to be here again. And Lord, I just ask your blessing over everybody, whether they're in the office or on the worksite today. Lord, would you watch over them and keep them safe? And in all of the challenges that we might be facing in this room today, Lord, would you remind each of us that you are enough, that we don't need to go to other gods or idols to receive our strength and our sustenance, Lord, but that you would be enough for us, that you would be all in all. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.